A while back, I had a discussion with one of my high end collector Transformer friends, and I said that for all we know of everything that we know that exists, there's still so much that we don't know exists because of collectors like us that just have all these rare goods and just have not shared it with the world. I know that I'm even guilty of it. I have so many different Japanese supplemental material, mangas, books with all kinds of unique art that I've yet to scan and share with the world. And slowly I put it on Twitter here and there when I have the time, but there's just so much that I have that's just never been seen or documented by a Wikipedia or a TFW 2005. It's just, there's so much of it. And just like I said, when you think you know you've seen it all, more stuff pops up from these big name collectors. One example of this is a fellow by the name of Busta Tunes, also known as Serial Geek. That's what I knew him for, because from the glossy magazines of Serial Geek. And he has a massive, massive collection of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe and She-Ra, production art, animation cells, all kinds of supplemental stuff. But he also has other cartoons that he's been collecting throughout the years of 80s popularity. Ghostbusters, Brave Star, trying to think of some others that he had that he's been selling throughout the years. I think he had some Voltron stuff too. But the point being is that recently he has started unloading a lot of his animation cells. Now again, 90% of this is He-Man stuff and Ghostbusters, but there's some unique stuff in there that is yet to be seen by anyone. A whole bunch of Transformer stuff. Some of it is studio copies of concepts used for the first 3 episodes of Generation 1. So shots of Cybertron, just really, really basic stuff, shots of the Ark. A really good, nice shot of the Ark 2 that was going to be used for the Autobots to fly back home at the end of More Meets the Art Part 3 that never happened. But the really interesting stuff that they showed was the preliminary design photos for a lot of characters. Now, some of these are not too, oh my god, but some of them are very fascinating. So we'll just go through them quickly. He has a Springer here. Pretty much looks like the Springer from what we know today, especially what appeared in the 86 movie ultimately in the end. We have a Wheelie with some coloration differences, matches almost more what his toy was going for, because Wheelie had like a gray face in the animation model, and he had an orange face on the toy, so this one, to kind of mimic that, has an orange face too, but still, the original G1 86 Wheelie toy and what the animation model was are night and day, two very different designs. We also have Wreck-Gar, again, not too different from his Fluoro Deary 1986 animation model. We have a Blurr here. We've kind of seen this color scheme used for Blurr in different preliminary stuff in the past, but otherwise the design is still the same. The Unicron is quite fascinating because it's a color scheme that I've yet to see been used on this character. We've seen the Ingestor color scheme, which had like purples and all kinds of weird colors on him, and all kinds of different takes of the character in different shapes. This one here uses something that's very reminiscent almost of Transformers Prime's Unicron. A lot heavy on the oranges in the face and everything. And again, just another coloration example. Supposedly all of these were sent to be approved by Nelson Shin. That was the whole purpose of these. And then after Nelson didn't need them anymore. The last one here is really interesting. And it creates even more of a history of the design from toy to animation model and then some, and it's that of Unicron. Now, not Unicron, Galvatron. Now, the Galvatron here, the rest of the body is business as usual, but that head design is very fascinating. It has a head design that is very similar to that of what the toy would have ended up being. The toy has a very, straight King's Crown kind of design, where the Galvatron animation model that we got ultimately in the end by Fluoro Deary had a much more flared out kind of, frills of a crown, if you will. And this one is much more true to that. The only other thing, if this was like done in gray, we'd be having a whole different conversation right now. Like if all this purple on him was like a light gray, we're talking the toy. And so it's really fascinating how the animation went the toy design went from one thing to another. And there's been so many discussions how Fluro Deary did the original designs, and then they were refined, and then the toys were done afterwards. And one could argue that we have the original Fluro Deary design, which probably had the crown like this. This was probably shown to Hasbro designers, and they went, okay, we're going to run with this. And same thing, probably why Wheelie has the orange face that we know today. And then everything obviously gets changed in the end, and we have the different crown design for Galvatron, we have the different color scheme for Wheelie, and the toys obviously already done, ready to go for production, and the animation models go in a whole different direction. So I mean, being a G1 fan, we were kind of used to 99% of our toys not looking like they did on the screen, but it's always interesting to see some of them where there was close calls, and you could kind of see why certain, decisions were made. We know why Ironhide, quote, didn't have a head on his original G1 toy because of its Diaclone origins, or Diaclone. But we don't know that when it comes to a lot of the 86 characters, because it doesn't have that Takara origin from the 70s. It has all that original in-house Takara with Hasbro designs made for the 86 movie. So this is really cool stuff. I'm going to link all the pretty much all the auction listings, and you could kind of sift through all the stuff. If some of this stuff is not there anymore, just check sold listings within that seller of Bustatoons, and you'll see obviously some of the other stuff that was sold in the past. Really fascinating stuff, and again, another piece of Transformer history that we didn't really know existed because so many of us collectors just have so much stuff. I know I personally have a whole bunch of animation cells of a whole bunch of different things, nothing that nobody knows about, but I know it sits in my collection. I have a whole bunch of it. Some stuff that's like, I think the only one that I remember I shared it online, I don't know, I want to say last year, was I got a whole bunch of animation cells from Beast Wars Neo, and the way that Vector Sigma was always depicted in Beast Wars Neo, there was such a huge lens flare that you could never really see the core of Vector Sigma. I had the cells without the lens flare obviously on it, so you could see the details and design. So I remember I shared that on there with the Matrix and everything. And that was just one example, but I mean, there's so much of that out there. So much. And like I said, just when you think you know what's out there, more stuff pops up.